Yesterday I saw a guy being humiliated in front of everyone, and the worst part, he didn't even notice. I was in a cafe when I witnessed a scene that made my stomach turn. A young man, well-dressed, polite, carrying flowers and a little gift box, approached a table where a woman was having coffee alone. What happened in the next 5 minutes reminded me why 87% of men die alone or in miserable relationships. He bowed, smiled nervously, handed her the flowers with trembling hands, and began talking about how special she was, how he thought about her every day, how he wanted to be the perfect man for her. The expression on her face changed instantly. It wasn't anger. It was something much worse, pity. She politely thanked him, said he was very sweet, but that she wasn't interested in that kind of relationship. The guy insisted. He offered dinner, a movie, anything she wanted. He promised he would be different, that he would treat her like a princess. With every word, she pulled away more. Literally. Physically moving back in her chair. When he finally left, destroyed and confused, I heard her tell the friend who arrived right after, "Poor guy, but what desperate energy. He looks like an abandoned puppy begging for affection." At that moment, a brutal truth hit me like a punch in the stomach. That man had just made the same mistake that 9 out of 10 men make every single day. A mistake that destroys any possibility of attraction before it even begins. And the scariest part, he thought he was doing everything right. But here's the first secret no one tells you: why she reacted that way has nothing to do with him being good or bad. It has everything to do with something much deeper and more primal that happens in the female brain when a man acts in that specific way. I used to be exactly like that guy in the cafe. I spent years of my life being nice, available, doing everything to please. I sent good morning texts every day, remembered birthdays, listened to problems for hours, offered solutions for everything. And do you know what I got? Phrases like "you're like a brother to me," or "you'll make some woman very happy." It just won't be me. The pain of constant rejection consumed me. I didn't understand. I followed all the rules society teaches. Be kind, be a gentleman, show interest, make her feel special. But the more I followed those rules, the more invisible I became. That's when I discovered something that completely changed my life. Something so counterintuitive that at first, I refused to believe it. But the results were impossible to ignore. Female attraction doesn't work the way men think it does. While we men are visual and straightforward, we see a beautiful woman and feel instant attraction. They work in a completely different way. For a woman, attraction is not about being good enough or doing enough. It's about something much more subtle and powerful. Let me ask you a question that might sound strange. Have you ever noticed that the most desired women are always with men who, at first glance, don't seem to be the best candidates on paper? They're not the richest, they're not the most handsome, they're not the ones trying the hardest. In fact, many times they're the complete opposite. This happens because there is a hidden psychological dynamic that governs attraction. A dynamic that goes against everything we've been taught about relationships. And when you understand this dynamic, everything changes. But before I reveal what I discovered, I need to warn you about something important. What you're about to learn goes against years of social conditioning. It will feel wrong at first. Your mind will resist. Because we've been programmed since childhood to believe a lie about attraction. And this lie is destroying the chances of millions of men every day. The truth is that there's an invisible protocol that most men follow religiously. A protocol they believe will win a woman's heart. But this protocol actually does the exact opposite. It kills any possibility of attraction. I call this protocol the nice guy prison. And if you're watching this video, chances are you're also trapped in it without even realizing it. The signs are clear. You always prioritize her feelings over your own. You're always available when she needs you. You avoid any kind of conflict or tension. You try to be perfect, never show real vulnerability, never disagree, never challenge. You treat her as if she were a superior being who needs to be won over through good deeds. But here's what no one told you: that behavior doesn't create attraction. It creates the opposite. If you're enjoying uncovering these hidden truths about attraction, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, because what comes next will shake your beliefs about relationships forever. That man's story in the cafe is just the tip of the iceberg. Because what happened to him wasn't bad luck, it wasn't misfortune, it wasn't because she wasn't ready for a relationship. It was the predictable result of a specific psychological dynamic that, once you understand, changes everything. To understand why attraction works in such a counterintuitive way, I need to tell you about a discovery I made at 23, when my love life was a complete disaster. I had just been rejected by the fourth woman in a row that month, and this time the rejection came with a phrase that destroyed me: "You're too perfect, I need someone more real." Too perfect? How could being too perfect be a problem? I spent hours getting ready, planned elaborate dates, was never late, always agreed with everything they said. I was polite, respectful, attentive. If that was being too perfect, then the world had gone mad. That's when I started observing the men who were actually successful with women. And what I saw disturbed me. They broke all the rules I followed religiously. They arrived late and didn't apologize. They openly disagreed with women. Sometimes they didn't even reply to messages the same day. They made bold jokes I would never have the courage to make. And women adored them. At first, I thought it was just women with issues who liked bad men. But when I began researching evolutionary psychology and neuroscience, I discovered something that changed my perspective forever. The female brain is programmed to be attracted to specific signals of strength and independence. Not necessarily physical strength, but psychological strength. The ability to maintain your own standards even under social pressure. The courage to risk disapproval in order to be authentic. When a man acts like the nice guy, he unconsciously signals the opposite: emotional dependence, fear of rejection, lack of options. But here's the second secret that will sound brutal: women don't fall in love with resumes. They fall in love with emotional states. And the emotional state that creates the most attraction is when a man doesn't need her approval to feel complete. Let me explain with an example that will make you rethink everything you know about attraction. Imagine two men interested in the same woman. The first sends good morning texts every day, replies immediately, is always available, agrees with everything, constantly offers help. The second is more unpredictable. Sometimes he replies quickly, sometimes he takes his time, he has his own opinions, he's not always available because he has an interesting life. Which one generates more curiosity? Which one does she think about more during the day? The answer is uncomfortable for those raised to believe that being nice wins hearts. The second man creates what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the same mechanism that makes games and social media addictive. But be careful. This doesn't mean being rude or disrespectful. The difference between being attractive and being toxic lies in the intention. The toxic man acts this way to manipulate or hurt. The authentic man acts this way because he truly has his own life, his own standards, and doesn't revolve around anyone. Now we reach the point that will shock you even more. Remember that woman in the cafe who rejected the guy with the flowers? 3 weeks later, I saw her in the same place with another man. The difference was glaring. While the first lowered himself, begged for attention, this second man was clearly in control of the dynamic. He didn't bring flowers. He didn't talk about how special she was. In fact, he spent most of the time talking about his projects, his travels, his plans. She hung on every word, asked questions, laughed at everything he said. The energy was completely different. And here's the first twist in this story: that second man wasn't more handsome, wasn't richer, didn't have more social status than the first. The only real difference was that he didn't need her approval to feel valuable. But how is that possible? How can the same brain violently reject one type of behavior and be magnetically attracted to another? The answer lies in thousands of years of evolution. For most of human history, women depended on choosing the right partner for survival. A weak, insecure, or dependent man represented danger not just for her, but for possible children. That's why the female brain developed ultrafast detectors to identify signs of male strength or weakness. When you act like a nice guy, you trigger all the weakness alarms at once. Excessive availability signals lack of options. Constant agreement signals lack of a personal identity. Over-the-top kindness signals fear of conflict. Desperate effort signals low self-worth. It's not that they do this consciously. It's an automatic, primitive process that happens before the rational part of the brain even processes the information. But here comes a disturbing question. If this dynamic is so clear, why does society teach men the exact opposite? Why are we bombarded with messages about being kind, available, making effort, pleasing? The answer will make you angry. Because society isn't interested in creating attractive men. It's interested in creating controllable men, predictable men who don't question the system. A man who knows his value and doesn't need external validation is dangerous to structures of control. It's much easier to manipulate someone who depends on others' approval to feel good about himself. And that brings us to the third secret, perhaps the most important of all. Attraction isn't something you create. It's something you stop destroying. You are born with the ability to be attractive. But years of social conditioning teach you to hide this natural attractiveness behind masks of good behavior. The real transformation isn't about adding more kindness, more attention, more effort. It's about subtracting. Subtracting the need for approval. Subtracting the excessive availability. Subtracting the fear of displeasing. The moment when everything changed for me happened in a way I never imagined. I was at a party, doing exactly what I always did, being the helpful guy. Helping organize, serving drinks, listening to everyone's problems, being the perfect friend that everyone loved to have around. In the middle of the night, a woman I had secretly admired for months came up to me. My heart raced. Finally, she had noticed all my dedication, all my kindness. Or at least that's what I thought. She looked me in the eyes and said something that crushed my soul but at the same time set me free. You know you'll never get a woman acting like this, right? You're like a ghost. Everyone likes you, but no one desires you. You have no presence, no energy of your own. It's like you don't exist as a man. The pain I felt in that moment was physical. But along with the pain came brutal clarity. She was right. I wasn't a man. I was an emotional servant disguised as a person. I left that party determined to discover what really created attraction. And that's when I found the studies that changed my understanding forever. Research showed that women release more dopamine, the pleasure chemical, when interacting with men who create what scientists call positive tension. Positive tension is not conflict. It's controlled unpredictability. It's the difference between knowing it will rain and not knowing if it will rain. The female brain is addicted to this specific uncertainty because it keeps attention focused and interest levels high. Nice guys eliminate all tension. They're 100% predictable. Always available, always agreeing, always doing what's expected. For the female brain, that's as stimulating as watching paint dry. But here's where it gets really interesting. I started testing this theory in practice. Instead of replying to messages immediately, I waited. Instead of agreeing with everything, I expressed my real opinions. Instead of always being available, I prioritized my own plans. The results were so dramatic that at first, I thought it was coincidence. Women who ignored me began reaching out. Conversations that used to die quickly now stretched on for hours. I wasn't being rude or disrespectful. I was being real. And then came the second twist that changed everything. I discovered that the problem wasn't just my behavior. The problem was that I didn't have an interesting life to protect. I was always available because I had nothing important to do. I agreed with everything because I had no convictions of my own. I was overly helpful because I had no greater purpose. The real transformation began when I understood that attraction is a byproduct of having a fascinating life, not the main goal of it. When you are genuinely busy building something meaningful, you naturally become less available. When you have real passions, you naturally have strong opinions. When you respect yourself, you naturally set boundaries. Women sense this instantly. They perceive when a man has substance of his own versus when he's just trying to impress. It's like trying to fake being rich. Some sign always leaks out that gives away the truth. But I discovered something even deeper. The real reason women reject nice guys isn't cruelty. It's self-preservation. They intuitively know that a man without his own life will become suffocating, possessive, emotionally dependent. They will drain her energy instead of contributing new energy. That's why they say phrases like "you deserve someone better," or "I don't want to ruin our friendship." It's not personal rejection. It's unconscious recognition of energetic incompatibility. Now we come to the most crucial point of this revelation. There is a specific type of man who is never taught about this nice guy protocol. Men who grew up with absent fathers, who learned to be independent early on, who never had anyone validating their every move. These men naturally act attractively because they were never domesticated by the need for approval. They don't do it to manipulate, they do it because it's genuine. And that explains why some guys seem to have natural luck with women. It's not luck. It's absence of toxic conditioning. But here's the part that will make you angry and hopeful at the same time. You can unlearn this conditioning. You can reclaim your natural attractiveness. But it requires something most men are not willing to do: confront the addiction to approval. Because that's what it really is. Addiction. You feel withdrawal when you don't receive external validation. You get anxious when someone might be displeased with you. You lose sleep wondering if you said or did something wrong. That's not self-love. It's chemical dependence on external dopamine. The cure is not seduction techniques. It's not clever lines or messaging tactics. The cure is to become someone who doesn't need that validation to function. Someone who has purposes, passions, standards, and clear boundaries. When that happens, something magical manifests. You stop chasing and start attracting. You stop trying to convince and start selecting. You stop begging for attention and start deserving respect. But there is one last obstacle that prevents most men from making this transformation. An obstacle so well hidden that few even notice its existence. And it's precisely this final obstacle that separates men who remain stuck in the cycle of rejection from those who finally break free and discover their true magnetic power. What is this obstacle? How do you identify it? And more importantly, how do you overcome it once and for all? The answer will surprise you because it's related to something you probably consider a virtue. The final obstacle that prevents most men's transformation is something they consider noble: the fear of hurting or disappointing women. It seems like a virtue, but in reality it's cowardice disguised. Let me explain how I discovered this in the most painful way possible. 6 months after that party where I received the brutal truth, I was applying everything I had learned. I was being more authentic, less available, expressing real opinions. The results were visible. Women really started to notice me. Until I met Amanda. Intelligent, interesting, exactly the type of woman I had always dreamed of. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I had real chances. She replied to my messages enthusiastically, accepted every date I suggested, showed genuine interest. But when the time came to be direct about my romantic intentions, the old me resurfaced. I started acting like a friend, because I was afraid of risking rejection. I thought, I'll win her over slowly, being the perfect guy, so I don't scare her away. Result? 3 weeks later she introduced me to her new boyfriend. A guy she had met at a party who, from the very first day, had made his intentions crystal clear. He wasn't afraid of scaring her, wasn't afraid of being rejected, didn't try to be a friend first. At that moment I understood the answer to the third loop I had created. Why do some men have natural luck? Because they never learned to be afraid of their own masculinity. They were never conditioned to believe that sexual desire is dirty, that romantic intentions are invasive, that expressing interest is pressure. They know that women want to feel desired, not analyzed as potential friends. Amanda taught me that kindness without courage is unconscious manipulation. I was being nice not for her sake, but to protect my ego from the possibility of rejection. I was using kindness as a shield for my cowardice. Women sense this instantly. They feel when a man is hiding his true intentions behind a mask of friendship. And that generates disgust, not attraction. Because it shows emotional dishonesty. The truth is that women respect men who risk rejection for them. Who have enough courage to say, I want you, knowing they might hear no. That shows strength, authenticity, self-worth. When you act like a friend hoping to become a boyfriend, you're communicating, I don't believe I'm attractive enough for you to want me for who I really am, so I'll try to trick you by being useful. This solves all the loops we've created in this journey. The first loop about the hidden psychological dynamic that governs attraction. It's the female brain's need to feel chosen by someone who has options, not by someone who idolizes her because he has none. The second loop about why society teaches the opposite, because insecure men are better consumers. They spend fortunes trying to compensate for their lack of confidence with gifts, expensive dinners, elaborate experiences. An entire industry profits off men who don't know their own value. The third loop about men with natural luck. They never lost the connection with their primitive masculinity. They know intuitively that attraction is about energy, not about resumes. And the fourth loop about the final obstacle. It's the fear of being rejected for being authentic. We prefer to be accepted being false than rejected being real. But here's the final revelation that changed my life forever. Authentic rejection is infinitely better than false acceptance. When you're rejected being real, you know you simply weren't compatible. When you're rejected being false, you'll never know if it could have worked. After the episode with Amanda, I made the hardest decision of my life. I decided I would never again hide my intentions. That I would be direct from the very first moment. That I would risk being rejected for who I really was. The first few months were brutal. I got more no's in 3 months than I had received in my entire life. But something incredible happened. The yes also began to appear. And when a woman said yes to the real man, the connection was explosive. I discovered that when you're not afraid of losing something, paradoxically you become impossible to lose. Women sense when a man doesn't need them to feel complete. And that is magnetic because they spend their entire lives surrounded by needy men who want something from them. A man who is complete on his own, who has his own life, his own goals, who sees them as a complement and not as a solution, that man is rare. And rare things are valuable. The complete transformation happened when I stopped trying to attract women and started living a life so interesting that attraction became a natural consequence. I invested in hobbies that fascinated me. I built businesses that gave me purpose. I cultivated friendships that energized me. I set clear standards for how I wanted to be treated. Result? Women started competing for my attention instead of me competing for theirs. Not because I became perfect, but because I became real. Not because I eliminated flaws, but because I stopped hiding them. Not because I learned seduction techniques, but because I developed something much more powerful, emotional self-sufficiency. Today, when I see men like that guy in the cafe, I feel compassion. Because I know they are following instructions society gave them, genuinely believing they're doing the right thing. They don't know they're sabotaging their own chances of happiness. The most powerful moral lesson of this journey is simple. You cannot love someone in a healthy way if you don't love yourself first. And you cannot love yourself if you depend on others' validation to feel valuable. Genuine attraction is not about techniques or strategies. It's about becoming the best version of yourself and having the courage to show it to the world. It's about living with so much passion and purpose that people naturally want to be part of your story. What you do with this information now defines the rest of your romantic life. You can continue in the nice guy prison, being safe, predictable, and invisible. Or you can choose the courage to be real, risking rejection to find true connection. The choice has always been yours. Now you simply have clarity about the consequences of each path. If this video changed your perspective on attraction and relationships, subscribe to the channel because we have many more important truths to share. Your journey of transformation starts now.